look at...
One of them I touch, they will sit down. Any one of them I touch will sit down. Man will sit down on his ass, trust me. Learn!
Okay, we're learning, mate. Right, so this is my fight prediction for the Fury Dillian Whyte fight. My prediction is that Fury will win by stoppage, be it a clean knockout or just a referee or a corner stoppage. I'm not sure, but I believe it will be stoppage. Mid to late rounds will go in between 6 and 10. And Fury's the betting favourite, you know, the unbeaten guy. The better record, really, despite what Eddie Hearn would have you believe, and what Dillian Whyte and all of his fans would have you believe. They only look at that through their tinted glasses. You understand why? Because it's in their interest to talk themselves up and talk the people that they're associated up with. But the reality is, Fury has got the better resume. You can't deny that. I mean, Whyte has... How often has Whyte ever been the B-side? Once or twice. Fury's been the B-side several occasions and always won. He's fought Deontay Wilder, who's actually fought, and he's actually gone away, physically gone away, not just as the B-side, but gone into other people's countries or where they're based. In terms of the champions, with the biggest knockout punches, some of the biggest knockout punches ever. I mean, Wilder knocked out everybody that he's ever fought. And you can bang on again, and they will bang on about how the fact or alleged fact to them that he's never fought anybody or whatever. But what actually is a fact, I mean, that's a matter of opinion, and their opinion's swayed. But what is an actual fact is when Eddie Hearn and all the rest of them are talking up Dillian Whyte's resume, or CV, or AJ's resume, they will happily reel off people on that resume who Deontay Wilder had already knocked out before their man had knocked him out, or knocked them out more impressively than they did. Brazil, Molina, Wilder beat Molina before Joshua did, I believe. He certainly beat him. He knocked out Brazil. He dealt with Brazil a hell of a lot more emphatically than Joshua did. Yeah, suddenly that goes out the window when it doesn't suit. So yeah, but Whyte, or nobody else in the division, to be fair, there's nobody, let alone Whyte, who has ever gone into people's backyards as the B-side, as the betting underdog, with everything against him, in terms of going to America 3 times to fight Wilder, going to Germany to fight Klitschko, and there's all sorts of other people on that resume as well, which just doesn't get the credit. I mean, Whyte gets credited with the Chisora fights. Fury dealt with Chisora in the second fight. He dealt with Chisora far better than Dillian Whyte dealt with him in either of his fights. I mean, the first fight with Dillian Whyte with Chisora, I don't think Dillian Whyte won. I thought Chisora won that. I thought the second fight, the rematch, I thought Chisora was winning until he got stopped in the 11th round, I believe. But yeah, fair play to him. You know, he takes a front. You've got to throw it to land it. So it's not luck. He's done it. He's beaten him. Was losing on points for me, and I think even on the official scorecards he was losing on points. But he's beaten him. Fair play. He's knocked him out. The first time Fury fought Chisora, granted, they can say Chisora was out of shape, but he'd gone to London, to Chisora's hometown, and beaten him, and he was unbeaten. He was the first person to beat him. So yeah, if you look at the two, there's the common opponent, Chisora, and granted, the Fury ones were further back, but if you look at the common opponent, I believe, which is Derek Chisora, like I've said, I believe that Fury has dealt with Chisora better than Whyte has dealt with Chisora. So, you know, there's two names there, Chisora twice. They're the same. Like I say, there's Deontay Wilder. There's Klitschko. There's Hammer, who's gone off the boil, who was never that good anyway. But the fact of the matter is, he was ranked number 4 on BoxRec when Fury fought him, so which was behind himself. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. And he'd already had the Klitschko fight locked in at that point. So in theory, he could have only possibly fought one other person. I'm not sure who that person was at the time, but one other person who hadn't already been locked in to fight, who he wasn't already fighting. So yeah, you can't really criticise him for that. You can't criticise him for the Steve Cunningham fight, because again, he'd gone to New York. He's from Philadelphia, just up the road from New York by all accounts, to go and fight former IBF cruiserweight champion, who again, he's moving up in weight, but he's had some fights and some wins since the Fury fight at heavyweight. Not Fury got knocked down or whatever, but Fury was far from the finished article at that point. Yeah, but he's gone and beaten him. You know what I mean? And these aren't insignificant wins. I mean, Eddie Hearn would have you believe that the Povetkin win for Whyte is, you know, a great win. But he doesn't. Everyone knows, but he fails to mention the fact that he got knocked out cold by him in the first fight. And this isn't the Povetkin of old. He's got the name. He likes to go off names. They all do at Matchroom. They love the names. They're not interested in the details. They're not interested in the fact that the bloke was 48 or whatever. They're not interested in the fact that, you know, he had to come abroad. He had to have everything against him as the B-side, as a betting underdog, as, you know, in a foreign place. And there's not for no title or whatever. There's no stake given in that. When I talk about Dillian Whyte, there's no stake given in titles, because he's never fucking won any titles. That's why he's only ever won the British, really, and maybe a couple of made up belts, I don't know, like Intercontinentals or something. But suddenly when, you know, Matchroom would be talking about, they'd move over to AJ, you know, he's the former unified champ and all this sort of stuff. All right, nice one, Eddie. Belts didn't matter 10 minutes ago when we were talking about Dillian Whyte, but suddenly they do matter again now that it suits. But anyway, Fury's the favourite. Whyte has got a good resume, but when you look through his resume, I mean, it's not quite as good as Eddie Hearn would have you believe. We talk about the Wallin fight, Fury and Wallin. Another good fight for Fury, unbeaten at the time, big fella, fighting in America, where Wallin was based. Beat him. He got a hell of a cut. He got 2 cuts on the same eye. It could have been stopped. It could have been a lot different. But as soon as it went to points, he beat him on points by several rounds. But suddenly, you know, when Matchroom were asked, and Dillian Whyte were asked about Wallin at the time, who's Wallin? We went and fought Andy Ruiz. All right. Nobody gave a fuck about Andy Ruiz until AJ got banged out by him. You don't work like this. You can't get credit for clearing up your own mess. You know what I mean? That's not how it is. If AJ would have done what he was on the way to doing with Ruiz, nobody would be mentioning that as a particularly good win. Okay, he had a close one with Parker. Yeah, fair enough. Whyte had a close one with Parker. I mean, Parker had him all over the place in the last round. It could have very easily been stopped. Very close on points anyway. And plus, one of the knockdowns that Whyte got credited with against Parker was a headbutt. It may have been accidental. I don't know. It seemed accidental to me. But the fact of the matter is, the damage was done from the head. It wasn't done from a punch, so it wasn't a legitimate knockdown. But he got credited with it. So, not his fault necessarily. But, you know, very bad luck on Parker. And that could have been very different as well. And that guy is in Parker's training with. He's based in Morecambe with Fury. You know, so he's got all that knowledge about Whyte, which he's now sharing with Fury. Like I said, they got the common opponent in Whyte. You got him banging on about saying, oh, well, Fury's not got a very good record for turning up, though, has he? All right, well, all that fighter that you were saying were dog shit Wallin before, suddenly, you know, you stop mentioning him in the dog shit bracket in one of the 15 interviews you do a day, Mr. Hearn, and it's like, oh, well, it sounds like something might be happening with Wallin, seeing as we're pretending that we haven't said that he was in dog shit for the last 6 months. And then lo and behold, he gets announced as being, you know, this dog shit fighter that only Fury's beaten, gets announced as being top of the bill at the O2 against Dillian Whyte. All right, great. Then Dillian Whyte pulls out and doesn't reschedule the rematch. Can't really be having a go at Fury for not having form, for having form for pulling out. It's Dillian Whyte that's got the current form for pulling out, unfortunately. It doesn't work like that. But anyway, I find Whyte entertaining, to be fair. He is overrated. He has had some good wins. I mean, he's beaten Rivas again. He's good, but he isn't really heavyweight, is he? Let's be honest. I mean, he could easily be a cruiserweight if he wanted. And Fury gets slagged for fighting, you know, alleged cruiserweights, like Cunningham and that, just because he's actually fought at cruiserweight. Big success with a world champion, but Rivas has never been a world champion in any weight. But he could very easily, only 6 foot, he's naturally a fair bit smaller than even Cunningham. He could easily be if he was more disciplined and wanted to be a cruiserweight. I know there's not the prestige or the money there compared to heavyweight. He could have easily been a cruiserweight. I've probably been a champion, but, you know, just because you fight an opponent who couldn't, for whatever reason, couldn't be arsed, basically, to make it down to the lower weight, does that mean you deserve more credit? I think it does. If you think about it, really, it means you deserve less credit, but we don't give him less credit for some reason. Povetkin, over the hill, knocked him out. Povetkin even more over the hill. Yep, fair enough, you stopped him. This isn't the Povetkin from before. It just isn't. Hellenius, again, he's had a bit of an Indian summer. Not the world's best, is he? I mean, Chisora beat him, let's be honest, didn't get the decision. Chisora, as we've mentioned, Fury's fought Chisora as many times as you have, Mr. Whyte, and it's, yeah, I feel like over the 2 fights, Fury's dealt with him more convincingly. Who else have we had? Lucas Brown, again, yep, knocked him out, left up, well done. It was, yeah, again, I don't know how old he was, late 30s, I believe, and he's never been the best, but, you know, he never really fought anybody of any note. I mean, Jagayev, I think, is probably who the best name he'd had, but again, he was overrated and undersized, and at the end, I think it was his last fight that Jagayev ever had. Who else have we had? Dave Allen, yep, well done. Distance with Dave Allen. AJ, yep, fair enough. You got knocked out by AJ, rocked him, but you got knocked out. But anyway, don't mean to slag either of them off, you know what I mean? But Whyte should be attending the press conferences. I listened to his lawyer and all this sort of stuff, and I'm no legal expert, but his lawyer's been doing some interviews, and he'd be, debating with Frank Warren or somebody from the Tyson Fury team. And it seemed to me, the lawyer's quite surprising, really. He seems to have a lot of what he believes are moral points, what should be happening or what shouldn't be happening. And this is a lawyer, you know what I mean? And the other side is Frank Warren. And he'd be stating what's contractually obliged and confirming that the contractual stuff has been happening. It doesn't get disputed by this lawyer, but yet the lawyer is still, sat there, and he doesn't deny it, like I say, but the lawyer'd still be sat there saying, well, this should be happening, even though it's not in the frigging contract. You'd think that would be the other way around, wouldn't you? With him being a lawyer, and I can only assume he's a very esteemed, prestigious lawyer if he's representing, a multi-millionaire heavyweight boxer who's a mandatory to fight the number one heavyweight in the world. With the disputes and stuff like that as to why he don't come to the press conferences. I mean, he should be coming, shouldn't he? I mean, it's unheard of that he didn't even want him to use his picture apparently on the posters, which is just you literally never heard of that before, have you? And it's just, yeah, I just don't seem to know what they're talking about, do they? And like I say, whenever you hear the lawyer going on, he'll bang on about the amount of tickets that they've tried to buy, even though it's not written anywhere in the contract that they were obliged to sell any certain amount of tickets to anybody. They'll go on about money in escrow, which, again, by all accounts, doesn't even start with Warren anyway. But again, at the point where he was making the point, wasn't even a requirement at that point. So yeah, the legal sort of stipulations seem to be coming from what I expected to be. I would have expected it to be Frank Warren that was, if either way around, if any of them were going to be complaining about the done thing rather than what we can get away with legally, which might not be morally or ethically right, but we'll get away with it legally. You'd think it'd be Warren that was saying that. You wouldn't think it would be the esteemed lawyer who knew about all the contracts. You'd think it would be him who was rattling on, we fulfilled this contractual obligation, we haven't breached here, we're not obliged to do that. Well, you'd think it would be the other way around, but it just doesn't seem to be, and I just don't really see. He may have a few moral points, but from what I'm no expert, but it doesn't seem like he has any actual points that he could really do anything about. But as with most disputes, the truth, that what's right and what's wrong and what should be happening or whatever, will probably lie somewhere in the middle. But I just feel that you can't help but think, given the facts and everything, but the truth can't help but lie considerably closer to the Frank Warren and Tyson Fury end in this case. But who knows? Prediction is Fury by stoppage, round 6 to 10.